like to call the school committee meeting to order.
I'd also like to call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order, and I would like to announce that this meeting is being recorded and ask if there's anyone in the audience who is also recording this meeting. Seeing none, if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we are here tonight to fill a vacancy on the school committee left by the resignation of Jeff Laurie. I'd like to read the section of Mass General Law that dictates tonight's proceedings. According to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, vacancy. As used in this section, the term vacancy includes a failure to elect. If a vacancy occurs in any town office other than the office of Selectmen, town clerk, treasurer, collector of taxes, or auditor, the Selectmen shall, in writing, appoint a person to fill such vacancy. If there is a vacancy in a board consisting of 2 or more members, except a board whose members have been elected by proportional representation under Chapter 54A, the remaining members shall give written notice thereof within 1 month of said vacancy to the Selectmen, who, with the remaining members or members of the such board, shall, after 1 week's notice, fill such vacancy by roll call vote. The Selectmen shall fill such vacancy if such boards fail to give such notice within the time herein specified. A majority of the votes of the officers entitled to vote shall be necessary to such election. The person so appointed or elected shall be a registered voter of the town and shall appoint the duties of the office until the next annual meeting or until another is qualified. Mr. Chairman, did you want to explain the process of how we'll move on tonight with the 3 applicants?
Sure. The way we will take care of our business tonight is by having one candidate at a time, starting with Leanne Gibbrey, will be our first candidate to come in, and she will answer 7 questions, followed by candidate Dave Saltz, followed by candidate Dorothy Sutton. At the completion of the interview process, we will take a roll call vote of the school committee, followed by a roll call vote of Board of Selectmen, and we will choose the candidate.
Thank you. So if Mrs. Gibbrey is available, we'll begin with the questioning.
So choose, appoint, majority vote, all that.
Enough.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Welcome.
So what the process tonight will be is, first we'll ask you to introduce yourself. Rather than having an opening statement, because you'll probably cover most of it in the questioning, we'll ask you to answer 7 questions that have been prepared, and then we'll give you the opportunity to make a closing statement if you'd like.
Okay.
Alrighty?
Okay,
So
great.
if you can just introduce yourself.
Okay. My name's Leanne Gibbrey. I live at 11 Rice Road in Precinct 3, and I was a prior member of the school committee for 7 years, and I'm here as I'm interested in Mr. Laurie's vacancy.
Okay. So
Just as as a point of order, you may want to move that microphone a little closer to you because we're having, it's fading here a little bit.
conditioner's
So if you can let the audience hear also. Thank you.
Okay. Is that better? Maybe.
So I'm going to ask the first question, and then the 2 chairmen will alternate. Mrs. Gibbrey, why do you want to serve on the school committee, and how much time are you able to commit to the position?
I would like to rejoin the school committee. Really, the first reason is because I miss it very much. I wasn't expecting to miss it as much as I do. I've always considered education to be a valuable asset in any town, and our students just thrive very, very much here. And as for the time commitment, I have all the time in the world. I have served on subcommittees in the past and would be willing to do so in the future.
Is that it? Mr. Chairman, if you want to ask the next question?
Hi, Mrs. Gibbrey. How are you?
Good.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
What would your priorities and expectations be as a school committee member, and how would Auburn students benefit from your input?
Well, foremost right now, as we all are aware, of the new middle school being built and then the transition into the Swanson Road building. So I consider that to be the top priority of the district right now, is ensuring that all of those projects continue on time and on budget, and that, of course, the benefit of that to our students would be new facilities and new opportunities going forward.
Very good.
What are your thoughts on the work that the present school committee has done, and what contributions do you think you could make if appointed?
Well, I'm a little biased with this question just because I consider myself part of the past work that's been done. I believe that the school committee works extremely well together, and we are fortunate enough that all of our unions work well together, the administration works well together, and I believe that my experience with budgeting and my knowledge of the workings of the school district would consider me an asset to the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
What specific skill set and/or involvement relating to the school district do you bring to the table, and how would those skills qualify you for a position on the school committee?
Fortunately, I haven't been able to attend all the meetings, but I am on the Master School Buildings Committee. Was involved in making those decisions to transfer the 10 Swanson School. I'm sorry, Mrs. Scobie, can you read the question again? I forget what else you asked.
It was what specific skill set or involvement relating to the school district do you bring to the table, and how would those skills qualify you for a position on the school committee?
Okay, thank you. Well, my skill sets in the past, I've been through 7 budget seasons. I understand how the budgeting goes, and I know this year's budgets are going to be extremely difficult just because of all the transitions of the schools and things. So I've been involved in setting policy and procedures in the past, and I'm a customer service manager, so I know how to kind of work together and try to work as a team.
Thank you.
This is a simple one. Should you be appointed, will you run for the seat in May of 2015?
I plan to, yes.
More budget talk, your specialty. With budget season approaching, what are your thoughts on budget recommendations regarding a proposed school department budget to present to the Finance Committee and ultimately to town meeting?
Well, I believe in the past we've been really fiscally responsible with our budgets and have presented to the town a pretty responsible budget in the past. I believe that we can continue to do so in the future. We just need to ensure that the projects that we currently have in place that are going with the schools are covered, and if we come across some unforeseen issues, that we're going to need to seriously take a look at that and be able to cover those issues if they arise.
Thank you.
That went fairly quickly. This is your last question. How do you envision your role as a member working with other members of the school committee as well as the superintendent?
Just to be able to contribute with, using my past experience and knowledge of the workings of the school district. I have a adamant love for education, so I'm always willing to put 110% forward. I'm enthusiastic and I'm energized about it. And again, when Mr. Laurie's vacancy came up, I was thrilled to be able to at least throw my hat into the ring.
Well, that concludes the questioning. Did you want to make a closing statement?
As I had written in my letter of interest to all of you, unfortunately, I had some personal issues that were going on this past spring, and the time really just got by me on the election. I all of a sudden realized the papers were due and I had run out of time. So I had intended of running again. Unfortunately, I just had some other things going on at the time. So I would just be thrilled to get back into it again. I love it. And like I said, when I first started speaking, that I didn't realize I would miss it as much as I do. I really do love education, and I love the way the school district is moving forward and has come forward, and I'm hoping to continue that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You're welcome to join us or go back into the air conditioning room and relax.
Great, thank you.
We'll call you back. Thank you. Sure.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm not sure of the process.
Well, let me tell you all about it.
Okay.
First of all, nice to meet you, Mr. Saltz. Finally meet you. Good to see you. And well, what will happen here is we will ask you a series of questions, 7 questions to be exact. We will take turns between Dorian Goodrich and myself. Answer briefly, or you can carry on if you like, however you feel comfortable. Okay. And at the completion of the questioning, you can join us here in the audience. You can go back into the other room and wait for the completion of the 3rd interview. Okay. And then we will take a vote as a committee, as 2 committees actually, Board of Selectmen and School Committee, and we will let you know the results.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me here tonight.
If you'd like to just introduce yourself, you don't have to give us a big spiel, as probably a lot of that is going to come out in questioning. So just who you are and where you're from.
Okay, sure. My name is David Saltz. I live at 11 Old Cart Road here in town. As some of you know, I've been in Auburn for almost 10 years. Moved to town with just my daughter and I as a single parent about 10 years ago. In the summer before Caroline, my daughter, started kindergarten, and as of yesterday, she became a high school student. So I have been a firsthand viewer, front row seat to the product of what we're all talking about here today.
Excellent. You ready for some questions?
I hope so.
Perfect. Would you like to get started?
Okay. The first question is, why do you want to serve on the school committee, and how much time are you able to commit to the position?
Thank you. This is my first foray into serving my community, or attempting to serve my community. I am an invested parent. I am a consumer of education in Auburn. I've always considered myself that. And I believe strongly in the mission of education in general, specifically what the town and what you folks here have been working on and trying to do and achieving as a school committee and as a Board of Selectmen. The direction I believe in, I like most, if not all, of the things I'm seeing, especially over the last 10 years. As a matter of fact, the things I saw, things I see today, 10 years ago, many of the things that we're doing today, one-to-one iPad initiative, were barely a concept, much less a reality. Why do I want to serve? Because I want to make sure we're asking the right questions today for the students 10 years from now to be successful in the world that they're about to enter. As far as how much time, I guess it's hard to say. Now that my daughter's entering high school, I certainly have more time than I have in the previous 10 years. I feel that I would be able to dedicate the time that would be required. I don't feel I need to put a limit on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What would your priorities and expectations be as a school committee member, and how would Auburn students benefit from your input?
Sure. I brought some notes. Do you mind if I refer?
Absolutely not.
Excuse me. This laptop's making it a little tough. So priorities. I guess first of all, as I said earlier, I do like the direction. I like the philosophy, if you will, that has been practiced here. What are my priorities? First of all, to continue down the path I think that has been laid out. Be respectful of decisions that have been made and that have led us to where we are today, and to build on them. I am a huge advocate of continuous improvement. I think the best school systems, the best organizations are believers in continual improvement. They embrace it as a driver of positive change. Understanding that, priorities such as I've mentioned to Dr. Brunel in the past, I would like to see the Auburn Public Schools be in the top 15% in Massachusetts academically. I know it's not something that happens overnight. I know it's a steep goal, but I truly believe that not only morally is it something that we are all as citizens and as leaders of the community responsible for providing an education of that caliber to our students, but I think it reaps rewards for all of us, people who live in town who don't have children in the school. A great school system draws families to town. It raises property values, innumerable benefits. I would like to solicit more feedback of those who are invested in this process, whether it's parents, residents, what have you. I think there are some great ideas out there, and I think we may be missing some of them just simply because we're not asking. I'd love to see that technology continue to be embraced as a priority. I know it's right at the top of the list with what's going on in the building next door, and I've seen it firsthand in the schools being retrofitted even today. My daughter, as a freshman in high school, being the first class of the True One-to-One iPad initiative, as a leading example. I think it's outstanding. The town website, the school website, finally, as of a few years ago, a useful place of knowledge where I could go to get information. If it was about this meeting, if it was about my daughter's homework, with iParent or whatever the next evolution of that is, I can see her grades as they come out. I love it. I think as a parent, it not only helps keep me informed, but it helps me be a better driver of my daughter's education. If I know as it's happening or soon after what's going on in her world, I know where to focus. And if she needs more homework time or if she needs to stay for extra help in algebra, technology has enabled all of that. And that's just within my time here in the last 10 years. And I'm sorry, there were other questions and I forgot them.
The last part of that was just how would Auburn students benefit from your input?
Because I've never been wrong. I think they would benefit in the ways that I've already mentioned. I think the technology, kids today, they're ahead of most of us with technology. If we're not utilizing it to its fullest potential to help them become better learners and to help them grasp the material today that they maybe didn't even need to, or we didn't even think about considering them grasping 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Using that technology, I think would be a huge benefit to them.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
The next question is, what are your thoughts on the work that the present school committee has done, and what contributions do you think you could make if appointed?
My thoughts. I'm going to reflect back on the words I've just said. I think where we are today is there's a direct cause and effect of the school committee that we have today. I have great respect for the leadership that they have provided, the direction that they have given, and the trail they continue to blaze. What would I contribute? I'd be a fresh face. I have not, as I mentioned earlier,
put myself in a position to serve my community, my school system. I think as a fresh face with new ideas, new ways of looking at things, a new perspective, even just to stimulate conversation at the very least amongst members, I think would be a great value.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What specific skill set and or involvement relating to the school district do you bring to the table, and how would those skills qualify you for a position on the school committee?
Specific skill set, I'm a father, and I'm seeing firsthand what we're producing in the school systems. While it may sound that I'm technology centric, I think this question is leading me in that direction, and I don't intend it to, but I have worked in technology for almost my entire adult life. Today, I am a leader of several high-performing technology teams. I work at Staples Incorporated headquarters in Framingham. We're charged with many of the same types of things that, or maybe not types of things, but with many of the same problems I think that a school committee would be charged with, solving issues under tight deadline and with less than sufficient budget.
Very good. That's good, Rich.
Just finished my notes here.
All right, take your time.
This is a simple one. Should you be appointed, will you run for the seat in May of 2015?
I've barely considered it, but I think my answer would be yes.
With budget season approaching, what are your thoughts on budget recommendations regarding a proposed school department budget to present to the Finance Committee and ultimately to town meeting?
Thoughts in general? I'm not familiar with the specifics of the budget.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on budget recommendations regarding a proposed school department budget? Yeah, it's a pretty broad question.
Sure. Overall, I think we're all very, very well aware that the school budget is a huge chunk of the town's money. Again, as I said earlier, I think it's money well invested. I think that if the right things are done with that money, it reaps rewards that are truly untold. You cannot go buy a great education system off the shelf. It takes dedicated people. It takes thought leaders. It takes folks who are willing to make hard decisions. And when that comes to budgeting, I think that those are paramount qualities. What do I think about it? I think that we should make good use of the taxpayers' money, but I think we should use it in a way that benefits the town as a whole, but our students specifically.
Very well said.
And this is your last question. How do you envision your role as a member working with other members of the school committee as well as the superintendent?
My natural personality is collaborative. I work better tossing ideas around a table, talking about pros and cons, even having somebody, myself even, take a devil's advocate position simply to talk and bring ideas to the surface. Sometimes in a brainstorm session such as that, a group will go down a road that they may not individually or even group-wise have even thought of going down before, and that road maybe is the one that leads to enlightenment, that leads to the right answer, or leads to a better place than we started in. So collaboration, I think, is key. Nothing happens in a vacuum, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that any decisions that are made do create ripple effects. They do potentially have repercussions down the road, and I think a stern and sober consideration of those ripple effects and any possible effects that they may cause, maybe even things that are completely unrelated, need to be considered and discussed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are all of your questions. If you'd like to make, any closing statement, we'd appreciate it. And then, you're welcome to stay or.
I actually would like to just take a quick moment and thank the committee, thank the Board of Selectmen for having me here tonight. I'd also like to thank Mr. Lurie for his service over the years. Good luck in Uxbridge and beyond. Best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay here now that you've answered your questions. Good evening. So I'm going to explain the process to you that we'll be proceeding with tonight. First, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. I'm going to ask you a series of 7 questions, and then after we finish the questions, we'll give you an opportunity to make a closing statement if you'd like. So first, if you want to just introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll move on to the questions.
Hello, I'm Dorothy Sutton, and I'm an applicant to join the town committee, or the school committee. A little bit nervous, but I have a 2nd grader in school, and we've been just completely thrilled with the experience that we've had, and I'd really like the opportunity to serve the town with the talents that I have. So.
Great, thank you. So, can you move the microphone closer to you?
Is that better?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll ask you the first question. Why do you want to serve on the school committee, and how much time are you able to commit to the position?
Well, in terms of time, I actually have a very flexible job. I do work full-time as a consultant. I'm a project manager for Oracle. But I am afforded quite a lot of flexibility because we have a global workforce. So it's been really nice being able to pick the kid up from school, things like that. But as far as my interest, I've just been very impressed with the current school committee, and they've just had such an impact on the community, and they have such a great track record of success. I'd like the opportunity to serve my town using the skills that I have. So,
Thank you. Chairman Scobie?
Welcome, Ms. Sutton. What would your priorities and expectations be as a school committee member, and how would Auburn students benefit from your input?
priority and expectations. Well, obviously, I think putting the kids' needs first is always important, but we have to bear in mind, that we have to stay within the budget of the town. We work within the means. The current school committee has done an excellent job of really finding creative ways to utilize the budget, as evidenced in the new school that we have coming up. I'm personally interested in the public health aspect of it. That's my background, as well as technology. I think it's fantastic that we have the iPad program coming in, and the STEM program. Obviously, that's kind of the type of thing that I deal with on a daily basis. So I'm certainly interested in looking at that as well.
And I think you've touched a little bit on the next question, but if you want to elaborate. What are your thoughts on the work that the present school committee has done, and what contributions do you think you could make if appointed?
If appointed, actually, I think it did answer that in the previous question, particularly with my knowledge about technology, with the iPad program.
Could you speak up a little bit?
Oh,
Ms. Sutton?
sure. There's a little bit of feedback. I would say my area of expertise being in technology, I run teams that build databases, but a lot of this has to do with clinical research, so I have, my health background is certainly would be a plus for that. So.
Thank you.
What specific skill set and/or involvement relating to the school district do you bring to the table? And how would those skills qualify you for a position on the school committee?
Well, in my profession, I run large-scale projects. I deal with multi-million-dollar budgets on a daily basis. I'm well-versed in, the importance of budgets, timelines, regulatory constraints, legal considerations. This is something that I kind of live and breathe as my profession in the past 7 years. And before that, I actually used to work as a regulatory and compliance manager. So I understand kind of the constraints we're working within. So I definitely think that I can bring that to the table. I also consider myself to be, a good leader. I know I would really only be one of 5, but I do think that could certainly add to, as far as being a leader instead of a follower. So.
this is a simple one. Should you be appointed, will you run for the seat in May of 2015?
Absolutely. I had I think I ran a pretty good campaign this spring, and I learned a lot, and I met a lot of fantastic people. So the level of consistency of interest is definitely there. So
Thank you.
You may have touched upon this already, but with budget season approaching, what are your thoughts on budget recommendations regarding a proposed school department budget to present to Finance Committee and ultimately to town meeting?
budget recommendations. So do you mean in general? I mean, I think as close as we can come into, I know last year we had a 3.37% increase, and so we might not really be looking at an increase this year in the budget. Maybe this is the year that we stay the same. But I would really need to look a bit further in the numbers to see if, are we on, it looks like Dr. Brunel has done an excellent job with staying, on, and the building committee staying on track with the middle school budget. So I would propose that unless we have, that we try to stay within the means that we certainly have already. So, but again, as things come up, I would, I'm not in the weeds yet, so I can't make a definitive decision on that.
This is the last question.
Already?
How do you envision your role as a member, working with other members of the school committee as well as the superintendent?
Well, I've actually worked with a superintendent on another project or two, so I feel like we have a really good working rapport. I also feel like I'm a good team player, team member. Obviously, being new to this, I would certainly have a lot to learn, but there is a lot of collective wisdom just sitting in this room, and I would take this very seriously. I consider it a worthy and very important commitment of my time. So.
Did you want to? Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Did you want to make a closing statement?
I just want to thank you all for your time. I think this is an exciting opportunity, and I think it's a great thing to be involved with. And I thank all of you for the service that you provide to the town. I feel very lucky to be a Auburn community member. So.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in. Now, I'll check in with my board. That concludes the questioning. I'm not sure if members want to take a brief recess to review their minutes, or are they prepared to move on to a vote?
I'm all set.
Members are ready to move on. Mr. Chairman, if you want to check with your committee.
School committee, are you ready to move on, or would you like to look at your notes? Tell anything? Wayne?
Dr. Brunel? Thank you.
Thank you. So we're fortunate we have 3 interested qualified candidates. So what the MGL requires now is a roll call vote. So with your permission, I'll turn it over to Mr. Scobie to collect the votes from your committee and then turn it over to Chairperson Goodrich to do the same.
Absolutely. I would also like to share in Dr. Brunel's sentiments. It seems that we've got 3 very highly qualified candidates, and I do thank you for showing up tonight. So I'll take a roll call vote.
Dorothy Sutton. Mrs. Goodry.
Ms. Skibberry. Dorothy Sutton.
Dorothy Sutton.
Mr. Carpenter, roll call vote.
Dorothy Sutton.
Mrs. Brotherton?
Dorothy Sutton.
Mr. Salt. Dorothy Sutton.
6 votes for Mrs. Sutton. I'll join with Mrs. Sutton. You've been elected to the, appointed to the school committee. And you have the official tally. We have 7, 2, and 1. Am I correct?
So you have Dr. Brunel.
Thank you all for
Congratulations.
coming in, and I hope you'll stay involved.
Thank you.
Dr. Brunel, did you have?
Before we adjourn, Dr. Brunel,
I didn't know if, this being Mr. Laurie's last meeting, if you wanted to say anything, that's
Yeah,
certainly up to
just
you.
A brief story to end my time here in Auburn and on the board. It was 2009. I decided that I wanted to get more involved in education for what was said here today by some of the people here. My kids were the leading factor for that. So in 2010, I formed a committee, as we all have done at this table, the Benvenuti family, Charlton family, Condon, Laurie family, McAleers, McIntyres, countless others who came to support. And we developed a team, we developed a plan. In 2010, in April, our team was dealt a tragedy when my nephew succumbed to that word with 6 small letters, cancer. And we decided then that we would persevere like he did in life, and we would work hard, we would build that team, we'd move forward. And as all of us has done at this table, we held signs, we knocked on doors, we did meet and greets, and to try to get our message out to the voters that we wanted to serve. Ironically, on May 19th, 2010, the last door I knocked on was Chris and Denise Landry on Sumner Street. And it was raining. You remember, Steve, walking those streets during that time. It was wet, it was cold. And they invited myself, my brother-in-law, Jake's dad, inside for something to drink. And I said, this is the last house we're going to knock on. We worked hard. Ironically, that's the family who purchased my home here in Auburn. Come full circle. We went home, we rested. My campaign manager, Tony Benvenuti, he had the perfect spot, so we had to be there before 6 in the morning to claim our little piece of land by the high school. We held signs all day. At the end of the day, it was announced that myself and Steve were elected, and we went down to Halligan's with our families, our supporters, and our friends, and we thanked them, and we celebrated. And as all of you know, the campaign doesn't end that night. The next day, we all get up and collect our signs. We work very hard. And that afternoon, late afternoon to early evening, my phone rang. It was my old boss, Chief Slucas's dad, Andy Slucas. And he said, Jeff, I know the last thing you want to do right now is hold signs, but I think we should slap a couple thank yous on your signs and stand down at Drury Square and thank those that supported you. So I said, well, you're right, it's the last thing I want to do, but you're asking. I'll meet you down there. And with Isabella, my youngest in tow, we went down and did just that. And about an hour in, a dark-colored sedan pulled up, and it stopped, and the window rolled down. And 6 words, I'll never forget, were spoken by a man by the name of Ed Kasanovich, someone I respect very much, our CFO in town. He said, Jeff, you are a class act. And I looked at Mr. Slucas, and I smiled at him and said, I'm not tired anymore. I'm glad I'm here. And I'm here to tell you and Mr. Slucas, who I consider a mentor, a true mentor, that I'm not the class act, that Mr. Slucas is. And those that supported me, all those individuals that came out in this community who has been I'm so thankful and humbled by the opportunity to serve with this school committee these past years and with the Board of Selectmen and past and present members. And even in times when we challenged each other, even in times when we agreed to disagree, we survived and we persevered, as my young nephew taught me. So as I leave my last official meeting here in Auburn, I want to thank each and every one of you. Thank you for your time, your support, the challenges we've had. I encourage you to stay the course. They're great things. This is a great town. From Dr. Brunel and your entire staff, to Julie Jacobs and her entire staff, and to our kids who are surviving. My goal is yours someday. You're right, top 15%. And to those that weren't selected here today, there is an election coming. And I encourage anyone that's listening to my voice to get involved in education. There is no greater honor than that of serving others, and it truly has been mine. Thank you all.
Well, I knew I should have went first. Jeff is always a tough act to follow, as I found out when I became chairperson. But I would just like to thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership, both here and the community. Thank you for your charitable work. Thank you for your guidance and everything that you've done for me to help me through the tough times of kind of getting my feet wet here on the committee. You're always there to answer my questions. You're a great person. You're going to be greatly missed by the committee and by the town. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
and I'll just say on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, you not only appeared before the Board of Selectmen in your capacity as a school committee member, but also as Detective Lieutenant with the Auburn Police Department, and the quality of the work that you brought before us was of the utmost thoroughly prepared work so that we could have proper hearings that needed a legal decision for. So thank you for that, and thank you for your service to the town. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Before we adjourn, I'd just like to congratulate Dorothy Sutton one more time, as I didn't want her to be overshadowed by the celebration of Jeff leaving. Not celebration. I didn't mean that. So congratulations, Dorothy. Thank you to the other candidates, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night, everyone.